This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Forging Table. The mission of Undaunted.Life is equipping men to push back darkness with content that forges spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. At the Forging Table, you'll see a group of regular guys forging spiritual resilience by digging into God's Word, and we're welcoming all of you to come along on that journey with us. That's Zach, that's Ryan, that's the one and only Matt Chandler. Yes, he is still at the Forging Table. You'll have to deal with him for another few weeks, so guys, if you don't like it, just skip ahead. But from the very beginning here, we're going to dig into Acts 6.
I love Acts 6.
We're going to have a great time in Acts 6, but I thought let's take advantage of this time where you're here at the table with all of us. And we do a segment every month with Joby. It's called Ask a Pastor.
Ask a Pastor.
With Joby Martin. And so there are some funny ones and there are some not so funny ones. And whoever turned the other lights on as well, our editor is going to hate you. So stop turning on the lights because they're two different. There are cool lights and not cool lights. So anyway, we'll deal with it. Oh, you can just say it. I mean, they're all listening to it now. If you want to turn it off.
They're watching you. You're on video.
Go for it. Go ahead, Ryan. Don't take your headphones with you. All right. Turn the light off. Be a good boy. All right. So we get donors that will send us questions. So you can either be a donor or a forging tabler, and then you will be able to get in here and you get to ask these questions. And so we're going to do a little segment right now. This is going to be our Ask a Pastor with Pastor Matt. That's what we're going to be doing right now. So we're going to be doing some low-key stuff. You were not prepared with these questions beforehand.
I was not.
Scout's honor. And so I want to start out with like a really low-key one that Joby had to answer. And so we'll start there, and then these guys have a couple of more, and then we'll dig into Acts 6. Should Christians attend gay weddings?
No.
Okay, very good. All right, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I just think what marriage is as both a partnership for the kingdom of God and a sign of God's covenant faithfulness to his people means it's a load-bearing wall for Christian folk in our understanding of human flourishing. And so to affirm a wedding with your presence that one can't biblically be that. It might be that under the law, but it's certainly not under that in what I would call ultimate reality, which is Christ enthroned at the center of the universe right now, not some future happening right now. Well, it's out of step with reality. It works contrary to human flourishing, and so I don't know why we would be there. I don't even know why you would live your life in such a way that there might be confusion about whether or not you should be invited. Now, I will say this. I'm the pastor of a church, so I know it's far more complex than I just let on. I know I've had, here was something that just happened at our church. A member whose daughter was getting married, he just tortured by whether or not to attend this wedding, and he just wrestled and prayed and looped in his community, and then he had a long conversation with his daughter. She is not ignorant to where he lands on these things, but he wasn't going to walk her down the aisle. He was going to come, and then he asked that if they did vows, they wrote their own vows and didn't use kind of historic Orthodox vows. And then the daughter agreed to those things. And so he did go to the wedding. He did not walk her down the aisle, and they wrote vows to each other rather than the historic Christian vows that put that marriage into God's design and plan for marriage. So I do think, I was just like, no, and here's why. But I do understand there's some complexities around family dynamics and stuff that you should take into consideration. But it was just like your friend from college. No. And I don't know that you going is going to be the thing that leads them to Jesus.
Which is always the argument.
That's always the argument. Yeah. And I'm telling you, I've been pastoring 30-something years. I've got a lot of people from that lifestyle that got, saved by Jesus Christ. I'm not saying they don't have compulsions that they still have to lay before the Lord, or I'm not talking about them being healed. I don't think it's a psychological issue. I don't think it's a healing issue. I think it's a lordship issue and a surrendering to Jesus issue. And in that, I don't, not a single one of them was like the kind of loose compassion that my friend had for me is what led me to the Lord.
Well, as you said before during some of your sermons, like this old school Baptist church camp idea where it's like people are just going to look at you and they're going to see you live a different life.
Yeah.
And they're just going to come up to you and they're going to be like, hey, why is your life so different? And mine's not like yours. And then all of a sudden it's like, has that ever happened like in the history of humanity? It's like, hey, while you're doing yard work, you have a smile on your face. Is there something different about you? Let me tell you about him.
Tell me about your Jesus.
Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, I think honest dialogue with gay friends, family members, where you're going to try as best you can to help them understand, one, your love for them, and two, your strong disagreement with how they've chosen to live. And it will always go bad before it gets better.
Right.
Because, and I know this from quite a bit of work in this area, and even some friends in Lauren and I's life. It's very difficult for someone who has same-sex attraction in this current historical moment to divorce that from who they are.
Right.
So it will always feel like an attack on personhood, even as you describe and define terms. So it's not. It is very difficult for people in this moment. My wife, one of her closest friends, this is her. And she has surrendered to the Lord, and she's married, and she's got 4 beautiful kids, and she's doing so well. And she was so angry for so long at any kind of teaching on this because she couldn't tease out what we were saying from how she saw herself. So it wasn't that God hates sin, it was God hates me. And I just found, what's great is where she is now. We've had long conversations about this. She's actually really helped me understand the animosity and the anger that flares so quickly, because it's in this historical moment. This probably hadn't always been true. It's near impossible for someone who's struggling with same-sex attraction to tease it out from their identity. And so they will always hear and perceive, even if you're like over the top using rhetorical devices to tease it apart for them. It's going to be you're going to need a work of the Spirit for someone to hear. And I'm not talking about a work of the Spirit for salvation. That's
right.
like, duh. I'm saying a work of the Spirit for someone to comprehend, you're not attacking me. You're not rejecting me.
Well, no, Bodie Baucham did a deep dive in It's Not Like Being Black, his latest book, where he talks specifically about that. Like that was part of the plan from the beginning, is to encircle your choices and your proclivities like into an identity. Yeah. And so, people made the argument before. It's like, well, I have a proclivity to sleep with every attractive woman that has ever walked the face of the earth, but we don't see that as a morally acceptable thing to do. But we're not going to get too far out that, because y'all get 1 bullet each. Okay. So y'all get to fire 1 question, because, we do have to get to the text. So who wants to go first? You get 1 question for your live Ask a Pastor. But Pastor Matt.
I had a good one and a second good one.
Well, just do your good one then. That's how that works. Can you make it happen?
I can make it happen.
Okay. Pick your favorite child. Go for it.
Well, you told me before we did this that I couldn't ask him anything that'd make him want to leave.
Well, that's why I boxed him in. So we got the table, we got the wall, and we got you. So it'll be more difficult.
But I know he has weak hips. So if I need to get through here, I'm getting
If you didn't listen last week, we did a deep dive into the weak Shakiras going on the other side of this table.
Salsa.
So you get 1. Hit it. Murder salsa. We got to put that in business. Come on, Ryan. Do it. 1 bullet.
Sorry, you're going to get upset about this one.
I bet I don't.
Here we go.
Man. So you've only got 2 artists you can listen to for the rest of your life. Is it Nickelback or Taylor Swift?
This is easy.
Is it?
I don't know enough about either one of them.
What do you listen to?
I mean, it just depends on.
He listens to Gregorian chants. Like,
oh my gosh!
Do you listen to contemporary Christian music?
I don't. I couldn't name you an artist, I think, other than some worship guys.
That is speaks to my soul right there.
I tend to. Yeah, I still can listen to old hip hop. I can listen to
old hip hop, like Houdini, or like
that's old hip hop. Yeah, I think more Tupac.
Okay,
and I like some good red dirt country music,
Zach
not
Bryan?
pop. Here's a great Oklahoma band, like the Turnpike Troubadours.
Mm-hmm. They're great.
I like Turnpike. So I listen to a lot of Turnpike. I can throw on some Merle. I'll listen to some Merle Haggard, some Old Willie.
But back to the question. You got Nickelback
Yeah.
or
Nickelback.
I know
Taylor Swift.
the 2 radio songs from Nickelback and 2 old songs from Taylor. And so I'm going to go Taylor.
Okay.
I'm going to go Taylor.
Take the whole catalog.
Nickelback failed.
Okay. Sorry, Nickelback, if y'all are listening to this.
It's not personal, guys.
Hey,
it's not personal.
They're
I
Canadian.
promise.
That's what really divides it. A bunch of
And I get them
Canadian.
confused with Creed.
Yeah, well, hey, I will
Creed's
say,
better than Nickelback.
hey, Nickelback never went away, but Creed is making one of the greatest reunion comebacks ever. They went away for like 12 years, and now they are back, and they are back with a vengeance.
I'm going to have to Google that.
I had a Creed tribute band back in high school.
No, they announced that they were getting back together, and they did like
they did a cruise
show on a cruise, and then they're doing a tour. By the time you guys listen to this, they will be in the middle of their nationwide tour. They are back, man.
It's in November, and I'm trying to get tickets.
What do you mean trying to? You went to the Eras tour. You might as well get the Creed comeback tour. Let's go
pay
play
for
it.
those tickets.
That's all. Well, get your company to pay for the Creed tickets. Like, come on. We can make this happen. All right, that was your one bullet.
All right.
Very good. Zach, one bullet.
Okay.
Why would you look at me like that
Because
for? What are you about to say?
You're making me pick between 2.
Okay,
so-
if we have
we
time
all
at the
had
end.
to.
Hey, if we have time at the end, maybe we'll do that. But we got some jujitsu to do.
So I'm
we
gonna
gotta
go. I'm gonna go with the one that will be a little bit more serious, but I'm very interested to hear your response. I'm gonna read a verse real quick, actually, too. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. That's Psalm 34:18, and then 2 Corinthians 1:3-4 says, "Praise be to God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion, the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." So I had a friend of mine stop by my house a couple weeks ago just to drop some stuff off, just by happenstance. And his wife was there. My wife, we came outside, we were talking. And he said, "Are you aware that a mutual friend of ours committed suicide about a month ago?" And I thought about it for a minute, and I said, "I haven't talked to him in probably a year and a half." I said, "I was not aware of that, but it doesn't surprise me." And the short version of this is this person who I've known for probably 13, 14 years, came from Texas, kind of a country gentleman kind of a guy, wore a cross on his ring, faith-forward sort of a person, 6 kids, I think all boys, had gone through a series of steps that led him to a divorce and some other things. And then from what I was told, he recently had a fiance, and he took his oldest to Europe to spend some time. And when he came back, evidently after all of those things had occurred, he chose to end his life. And the reason I'm asking you the question is because as I was talking with this mutual friend of mine, I was reminded of, what Kyle would talk about, 3 a.m. friends, being surrounded by community, going through difficult things. And as I was talking, I could see him saying, "Zach, we did that. We checked this off. We had a group of men. We were there. We were on rotation. We were walking with them for the last year and a half." And just that exasperation and anger, frankly. And then thinking about the boys being left over and all the circumstances. And as I read these verses, I guess it's just kind of an application question. You might have the head knowledge to say something, but how do you walk with somebody where that just did not work out the way that you would think?
Yeah. So I think an early lesson in ministry for me was that another guy has to be willing to enter into what you're offering. It doesn't matter what you're offering. And so, I mean, I could tell you 1,000 guys over the last 30 years that said they wanted accountability. I could point to dozens of guys who've disqualified themselves who had accountability. And so we can, no matter what we offer, the other guy has to be willing to come into what we're offering. We have so little control over what they'll actually receive or take advantage of. And that's the powerlessness of being human.
Yeah.
And so you can be there and him not take advantage of that. He can have 40 people to call and choose not to call one of them. He can, that kind of darkness that you're describing, it's all consuming. You can't see or think now he probably could have months ago or a year ago and he chose the isolation path. But it even sounds like I've had guys go dark on me that I've reached out to, and they haven't wanted to come out of isolation.
Right.
They haven't wanted to enter into. They haven't wanted to turn and face it, whatever it is. And so what I've tried to do as a pastor is make myself as available as I can by the grace of God to those who the Lord's put in my life and in my path. And then they have to either take advantage of that. It's not uncommon when I give my cell phone to someone to say, don't decide for me that I'm too busy. Like, I'm a grown man. And so if you call and I'm busy, I'm not going to answer. You're not bothering me. I'm just not going to answer. I'm busy. Leave me a message and I'll get back to you, or text me. And it might be a day, but I'll text you back. But don't choose for me that I'm too busy for you. I'm grown. I get to make that decision. You don't get to make that decision for me. And so that's been something I've learned to say. I think I probably said it to Kyle, and I'm like, don't choose for me that I'm too busy.
Well, if I may, the very first time you and I ever spoke on the phone was when I was going through something incredibly rough and was very, very confused. And that's whenever we met. I even made the joke. I was like, this is like a really horrible way to meet somebody, to hear like this terrible story or something like that. But that is true. You have so many guys, like my wife is more so wired like this, more so than I am. She hates asking for things. So some people hate asking for things because they bought into this lie that you're supposed to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and never ask for help. She's the opposite, where she doesn't want to ask for help because she doesn't want to be seen as a burden. Like, she doesn't want anyone to be like, oh God, I got to do this. Because in her mind, she's like, oh God, fine, I'll do this for Kelsey. Like, and so that's her attitude. And so she would not reach out to help for somebody because she would make that decision for them that, oh, well, they're burdened. They've got too much going on. Like, oh, they've got kids. I wonder if they're not sleeping. And so when she's going through her own valley of the shadow of death or something like that, she doesn't have those people because they don't know what's happening to her. They don't know what's going on.
What about the friends that keep a tally when you want to help them?
What do you mean?
Like, hey, I need to get some tables. I'll go get them for you. No, you've already done enough for me. I'm keeping a tally.
Doesn't make any sense. I don't know why anyone would do that, but there is a debt ledger for people. And if you let a guy do too many favors for you, they're eventually going to call that debt in.
But the point is that let those people help you because they want to help you, and they do it because they don't expect you. They don't expect a debt that you owe them.
It blesses them.
It blesses them to do it. Yeah. And so
I don't want to keep this going at all. I don't want to be called out on my own show.
He got on me when he's like, I need a table. I was like, I'll go to my sister's house and get it in Bethany. He's like, no, you're already
too far.
Yeah, no, you're not doing
like,
it.
I determined for you that was too grand of a gift. So it's.
I was like, I'll run and get it. I don't care.
So just in case some of these guys listen to this, just a quick follow-up would be from a gospel perspective. I think I know the answer to this, but I'm not 100% to be honest with you. In that situation, assuming that he did give his life to Christ in a genuine way, where do you think he would be today?
Yeah, I think if he had given his life to Christ and had a relationship with God through Christ, then he's saved.
Yeah.
There is a darkness that you see even men in Scripture get into that you can see is just all consuming. And in the Scriptures, they all get to the other side of that. But you can see how, like, I just think, how much of a moron is Elijah? I mean, he frickin' just saw fire come down from heaven, and he just slaughtered, however many false prophets and priests of Baal. He's got evil on its heels, and what does he do? He gets scared and he runs and he's under a tree and he asks God to kill him, and God's like, "You need a steak and a nap."
Yeah.
Which I've loved that. Since I first read it, not long after I became a Christian, I was like, I freaking love this story, man. The Lord's like, you need protein and a nap. You don't need death. And so, I don't ascribe to that's the unforgivable sin. I think that's a reach.
Yep.
No.
I guess,
or people that'd be like, life in Christ is so butterfly that you never get to those places. It's like, or there's the Psalms of Descent.
Yeah, exactly.
We just went over a bunch of them.
Yeah, we did. And that's the thing. It's like, man, and if you can't understand the valley of the shadow of death until you've walked through it, you've felt the soil under your feet, you can smell the smells around you, and those things don't leave you. And we all kind of shared stories of our own valleys of the shadow of death, and they all got related to our children, which, no pain like kid pain, as Pastor Joby likes to say. And so that's something that's very important for us as we move forward and get into Act 6 as well. I had a second question, but because I kept y'all from firing your second bullet, I will leave it. But it's a doozy. So let's see. I don't want to sue.
Is it about pronoun hospitality?
It is not. It is not. That was on the list. That was on the short list. But we do need to get into the text, and we'll dig in a sufficient level. But I do need to admit something from the very beginning. I'm the one that turned that light on. And the reason I turned that light on
because
is
I locked the bathroom.
No, he did. By the way, he locked the bathroom door here at the studio. It's like, who does that? That's older than the age of 3.
It was an accident.
But I thought you also turned this light on. No, I did. How or why? Because I had to get a Bible that you could actually read with text that was big enough to actually read out loud, which is exactly what you're going to do right now.
Oh, am I up?
You're hit. You're going.
I'm up.
I don't know that you were up in the normal lineup, but you're up now. That's what I've decided. So Acts 6, you're doing verses 1 through 7. Hit it.
Okay. Now, in these days, when the disciples were increasing in number, a complaint by the Hellenists arose against the Hebrews because their widows were being neglected in the daily distribution. And the 12 summoned the full number of the disciples and said, "It is not right that we should give up preaching the word of God to serve tables. Therefore, brothers, pick out from among you 7 men of good repute, full of the Spirit and of wisdom, whom we will appoint to this duty. But we will devote ourselves to prayer and to the ministry of the word." And what they said pleased the whole gathering, and they chose Stephen, a man full of faith and of the Holy Spirit, and Philip and Procrus, and
Just say it with confidence.
Nicanor,
Nicanor.
and Timon,
Nicanor.
and Pharmus, and Nicholas, a proselyte from Antioch. These they set before the apostles, and they prayed and laid their hands on them. And the word of God continued to increase, and the number of the disciples multiplied greatly in Jerusalem, and a great many of the priests became obedient to the faith.
That was beautiful.
Man, that was
It
nicely
was
done.
read so beautifully.
Thanks.
Nicely
Sorry, Joby.
done. Hey,
it
when
was
you get to
great.
those names, you just make it up and just say it with confidence. And so one thing that I might be reaching here from the beginning, but again, I didn't grow up in church, and so like I missed out on VBS, and I missed out on Falls Creek Church Camp here in Oklahoma. I missed out on most of these things. So I pick up on some of the kind of colloquialisms of Baptist, ideology or whatever. And one of the things that I've picked up was that everyone has their own set of gifts, but there's no set of gifts that is above any other set of gifts. They're just different. And so similar to kind of complementarianism, it's like you are equal in importance, but you've been given different roles. And if you put a value judgment on whether this role is more important than the other, that's a you thing. That's not a God thing. But I feel like this text, and I couldn't really, as I dug into different commentaries, get any comments on this, but it seems like there's at least an implication here that word and prayer, the teaching of the word and the action of prayer is more important than serving. And so again, that's me putting a value judgment on what I'm reading in the text, but that's what it seems like, to where it's like the apostles are like, no. Let's get some other people to do the serving stuff, the stuff that's maybe more so in their wheelhouse. But what we're doing, the preaching of the word and prayer, that is more important. So am I reading something into the text there?
Well, one, let me just say that this is not a big VBS text. Acts 6 isn't.
Okay.
Not a lot of,
Fair
this
enough.
week, kids, we're going to be on
That's right. Yeah, you never
Stephen
know.
being seized.
You never know.
Which is the next part of the text. But certainly, I think we even see the Apostle Paul talking about the one who teaches is worthy of double honor. There are specific gifts, a subset of gifts that are at the forefront of how God is expanding his kingdom. But it doesn't put that gift set above the greater call to service. So this is a specific act of service, in this case, working through this squabble between the Hellenists and the Hebrews on daily distribution. So they're saying, and I've ordered my whole, it's taken me 23 years, but my ministry looks like this now. But early on, it was me in the middle of this squabble about daily distribution. But now, 23 years later, there are people that would handle that daily distribution issue, and I would get looped in on it. This is what happened. Just want to let you know. You don't need to do anything. Keep studying Jonah. And so my job description now, 23 years in, is like I prep, pray, preach, and pastor. That's what I do. That's my job description. I don't run a single meeting at the Village Church. I don't run our elder meeting. Chairman of the elder board does that. I don't run our exec staff. Josh Patterson, our lead pastor, does that. Or Nick Crawford, our other lead pastor, does that. I pray and preach and pastor. That's what I do. It's not, but I'm also not above in doing that, the call to serve and to sacrifice. But so this isn't, they're not saying that to go preach and pray is to not serve. They're saying, I think what they're saying, because of the rest of Scripture, is they're saying, hey, this is an issue. We need a category for people to handle this level of issue so that we can lead with clarity and preach with conviction and pray and ask the Holy Spirit to continue to move in power. And so the Scriptures are going to say, hey, the one who teaches is worthy of double honor. It's going to put maybe some greater weight on the gift of apostle and teacher and prophet. But then Paul's going to swing back right around after he says that and says, can the eye say to the ear, or can the foot say to the hand? And so he's going, teach all you want, but if no one's there to handle this issue between the Hellenists, it's going to start falling apart on you.
Right.
And so there's a synergy of the gifts, which is what I think the Scriptures are trying to get across to people, that you need to play your part well. And like Shakespeare said, there are no small parts.
So with that in mind, for the people that are not naturally wired for the sexier gifts, because like preaching is a sexy gift, people that can sing really well and that, have good theology in the words that they're singing, like those are really sexy. But then there are people that have very good understanding of who they are. And they're like, well, that's not me. Like, I actually like doing the coffee in the mornings and making sure that everyone's ready to go. But there is that, what do people call it? The spirit of diminishment that comes on people when they're like, yeah, but I'm just doing the coffee. I'm just helping in the parking lot. I'm just greeting at the door. I'm just handing out this, that, or the other thing. Like, what would your message be to people like that are just, they feel like they are lesser than because they aren't on stage with the mic on their face?
Well, I think it's a lie of the enemy. And I think even the Apostle Paul talks about those with those kinds of gifts as being, you need to recognize those. Like the gallbladder's not sexy, but let it go bad on you. See what happens. And that's Paul's argument and why he uses the body the way he does. Anybody listening to this that had their gallbladder flare, they're amening me right now, because I've seen two people go through it, and it's brutal. I mean, on the ground, in the fetal position, wanting to die. And its job is to produce bile.
Yeah. Not very sexy.
No. I mean, probably the least sexy. I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to say it. I'm going to filter. I'm going to filter myself. That's growth. My team listening is proud of me. They're like, I saw it.
We did it.
Proud of you.
Maturity.
Proud of you, buddy. Or closer. Not there, but closer. So I want to, with the place that the Lord put me, to be very vocal towards those people and encourage them in their giftingness and remind them how big of a deal it is. And what's been interesting to me as people who don't know me meet me is that can be seen as strange. So I don't know what the hell's going on out there, but like I just got asked to be on a podcast for production guys because a guy came in and just saw the friendship I had with Wes. I poured him a cup of coffee. I brought it back. I thanked him for the morning. And this guy was so disoriented that I'd brought Wes a cup of coffee and spoken to him before he spoke to me, that he was like, can you guys come on and talk about the nature of your relationship? But I'm telling you, Wes is the one that makes the weekend go. And I know this because we had a power surge Saturday night and lost power. And I've got my sermon, but without Wes doing what he does, only the first, in my case, 25, 30 rows are going to hear that. And so what he brings to bear in his unique giftedness, like everybody that comes to the Sunday gathering experiences, that's a profound gift. And he's so good at it that like my wife knows when he's on the board and when he's not on the board. Like she literally can hear it. I don't have that ear. She's a musician and she's got that ear. And she'll be like, Wes wasn't on the board this morning, was he?
We're not maligning the other people that are on the board.
No,
that are potentially listening
they're
to this.
excellent. It's Lauren. I'm dogging my wife.
Okay. How dare you, Lauren?
Yeah.
But
she's
cool
judgy
thing,
like that.
The cool thing about that is, so every year, the first podcast of the year is how to avoid being a crappy man in that year. And it's, 15 to 18 different things like, hey, don't let sports ruin your night. No porn, no jerking off. Like don't pretend you know something that you don't know. But one of the things that I added this last year is be nice. I didn't say it this way. It's the only way it's coming to my brain right now, but it's like, be nice to the help. Be nice to the people that are serving you your coffee, that are bringing you your dinner, that are delivering something to your house. because it's like
Such a low bar.
and it really is. And even some people,
Just be nice.
they apparently have a phone book vertical because they can't jump over that bar.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Because and we've been in this because we've been in enough business meetings between the people at this table, and you watch how people treat their assistants and watch how they treat their subordinates or watch how they treat certain people. And then they turn to you and give you their full attention because
Absolutely.
they need something from you, or because, they're trying to like keep this relationship going. And it's like, man, you're kind of a jerk.
Yeah, I'm
like,
not going to trust a
it's just
man like that. I won't trust a man like that.
Yeah, some people, like, I know you guys golf, and like, but like when you see how someone plays golf and they don't know that you can see them, and they kick their ball out from the rough back into the green and things like that, it's like you learn things about people and the liberties that they take. And in jiu-jitsu, those guys that get a little aggro, they hold on to a sub a little bit too long after you subbed them.
Yeah.
And you can see that ego coming up. And that's another thing why what I like about jiu-jitsu is because it's like, I know where the limits are for these people, because this is simulated death match that we're going through right now. And if you can't handle it, or if you get up and you storm off the mat because you got beat by someone that's not as good as you, which is what I had done down at the white belt level, it's like you've got to know the people around you are mature enough to be able to handle the fire. And you can just see these signs in people just based on how they react to others.
Yeah.
I've been really fortunate in my life to have a lot of mentors and a lot of leadership training and things like that. And across the board, all of them, and especially the ones you respect, I think they would all say the number one trait for a leader is humility, period. And once you're at a certain point where you understand that everybody's contributing, every single one of those contributors is critical for the operation to succeed.
The same, a buddy of mine was in development group. So that's SEAL Team 6. Yep. And I can't remember if I asked him about this. There was a part of a different book. It was like a Marine that wrote or something like that. But they were talking about how they got back after a mission, and they'd be dirty, and they'd been outside the wire for a long time, and they're covered in like blood, and some of their best friends' brains are still in their pants. These horrible situations, and they would get back to base for these guys that never left the wire, and they would just have this tremendous amount of disdain for them. And my buddy said, I remember we went on a mission that was around Thanksgiving. And again, this is development group. These guys are going out on capture kills every single night. Like, they're getting kinetic every single night, right? They're the literal tip of the spear. And they get back to base. And by the time they got back to base after doing, taking out these high value targets, the only thing left of the turkey dinner were rolls and butter. And so no mashed potatoes, no turkey, no ham. Which by the way, are you team ham or team turkey?
For Thanksgiving or
no,
just
in general? Team ham or team turkey?
Turkey.
Yeah.
Man, someone just got added to team turkey. That's one of the biggest debates. Other than Calvinism, that is the biggest debate at this table, which is what team you are, team ham or team turkey. Why turkey?
I like it.
No, so do I. I like
dry.
it. But over ham?
Yeah, over ham.
Just like if I gave you a ham steak, you'd be like, do you have any turkey back there?
No, I would just thank you for the ham steak.
Okay, but
God gave Peter a dream for a reason.
I agree.
what did he dream about?
Well,
He didn't dream about salad.
Divine
bacon.
swine.
Yeah.
The bacon I ate this morning, extra crispy.
Extra crispy, but like part of that animal is the ham, right? He's not like, rise, kill, and eat turkey.
Yeah,
He didn't say that.
No, he did it because it was already on the menu.
Okay, I don't
You
even
had to
know.
bring 2 birds to the temple, man. Couldn't bring any
Okay,
ham though.
that's very disappointing, but I guess we'll have to plug
fine.
through.
We'll
we were
be
worried
fine.
about you pissing him off so bad that he'd leave, and now we got freaking Team Turkey guy over here. Okay, well, we got to get back to the story, but ultimately his point with the story was he remembers, again, he had just got back from killing a bad guy, and here are these guys with no calluses on their hands, completely clean uniforms, hadn't sweated today, and they went back for seconds for turkey and stuffing and dressing and mashed potatoes and all the fixins. And he remembers being so angry at these men, and it wasn't until later where he had, matured a little bit and said, there's no way I could have gone on that mission without the guys that filled up the Humvees with gas, the guys that made sure that we had a place to sleep, the engineers that like built our outposts, the guys that were handling the ammunition that got to where we could even load it in our magazines, the guys that checked our weapons, the guys this, and that. And they didn't fly the planes to get themselves into country. They didn't do any of those things. And so it was just a difference in perspective from them to where it's like, all right, we're doing a different job, but we're all part of the same mission.
Yeah.
So as we get, there's really only 2 main sections of Acts 6, but we get a hint as to the section after this in verse 7 when it says, and the word of God continued to increase, and the number of the disciples multiplied greatly in Jerusalem, and a great many of the priests became obedient to the faith. That's likely the main reason why Stephen was maligned and targeted, because there were important men that thought one way, that completely shifted and changed and went another direction. So Zach, how about you read the rest of Acts 6? That is verses 8 through the end, which is 15.
And Stephen, full of grace and power, was doing great wonders and signs among the people. Then some of those who belonged to the synagogue of the freedmen, as it was called, and of the Cyrenians, and of the Alexandrians, and of those from Cilicia and Asia, rose up and disputed with Stephen. But they could not withstand the wisdom and the spirit with which he was speaking. Then they secretly instigated men who said, "We have heard him speak blasphemous words against Moses and God." And they stirred up the people and the elders and the scribes, and they came upon him and seized him and brought him before the council. And they set up false witnesses who said, "This man never ceases to speak words against the holy place and the law. For we have heard him say that this Jesus of Nazareth will destroy this place and will change the customs that Moses delivered to us." And gazing at him, all who sat in the council saw that his face was like the face of an angel.
So a few things here, though. The one thing that I really like, which again, there's a reason why people re-listen to songs. There's a reason why people rewatch movies. It's because you notice things about the songs and about the movies. Same thing with scripture. I don't know how many times I've read Acts 6 and I've read full of grace and power and never thought about it in the context of what we talk about all the time on Undaunted.Life, is where it's like, okay, it's grace and power. It's grace and truth. It's tough and tender. And so Moody had a short sentence about this. It's the attractiveness of character and the strength of spirit. We have so many people now, whether it's in the Christian men's podcast space or in ministry space, that they want to focus on one or the other. And I always talk about the pendulum has swung so far to the grace side, to the Lamb of God side, to the detriment of the understanding of the Lion of Judah. We don't have that side of it really at all. But the problem is we have people that only do the aggro Lion of Judah thing, and they don't think about, okay, yeah, tough. I get it. There is a major deficiency of tough in our culture. But to the detriment of tender also becomes a problem for the same people who are so tender naturally that they don't really work on the tough. So that struck me from the very beginning, that Stephen was both, and it's elucidated here directly in the text. That was a great point, Kyle. Fantastic. I love dead air. It's like my favorite. So did we go ahead and wrap? Do we just need to move to the outro of the show?
I was thinking of Stephen's face and how it lit up.
Yeah.
And so it reminded me back in Exodus when Moses' face shone bright after he saw God.
Yeah.
And then also the transfiguration where they lit up there. So it's kind of showing God's presence. R.C. Sproul, I think, said it best. He said Stephen's face was not the ugliness of his accusers. So his accusers were staring at him with ugliness and wanting to be hostile towards him. He goes, instead, it was the grace and loveliness of God. And so I think it just kind of shows that, Stephen was bringing the truth, and God shone his grace upon him, and you could see it upon his face as he was going through, probably the worst trial he's probably going to go through, because spoiler alert, what happens next week.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I love the line, but they could not withstand his wisdom and the spirit with which he was speaking. But that spirit there is capitalized. And then, so it doesn't, and man, I think probably everybody at this table has experienced this. It doesn't devolve into violent chaos and seeking his death until they're just getting slaughtered without an argument by this man who knows and sees and is full of the Spirit, but also speaking wisdom in what he's saying. So he's giving a defense, and we don't get the defense in the text. We're going to get his sermon, which I think is one of the best sermons in the Bible. But he's arguing them in a way that's exposing them, and they don't have either the capacity or the grace to hear it. And so instead of going, oh my gosh, maybe I'm wrong, they instead hatch this scheme to get him killed and make up arguments. And, the number of times people have said to me, you said that. I was like, I didn't say anything like that. I didn't say anything like that. You heard that, but I didn't say that.
Well, they also twist words. They twist Christ's words in here, where Jesus of Nazareth will destroy this place and will change the customs of Moses delivered to us. It's like Jesus is talking about the temple. He was a temple.
Correct.
But they're twisting the words just like Satan does in the desert to malign him.
Well, and I think that's an important thing to look at this. is, as you say so often, Matt, it's like the Bible's not about us. Actually, you scream it while at other people's churches and melt their ministries down around them. And that's when you say it. So you're not David. The Bible's not about you.
I think he's doing fine.
TRT is amazing. It's an amazing drug.
He's got nice shoes.
Yeah, he's got the fancy shoes. But the thing about it is we do look at the Bible and we do try to find our place in it, because there are parts of the Bible that are not just descriptive, they are prescriptive.
Yeah.
And one of the important things here is that we see in our modern moment, when you see people that are on the left of basically every issue in culture, the moment you start arguing the point, they don't want to talk anymore. That's where they're just going to start banging on their drum or screaming through their loudspeaker. It's because they can't defend their arguments based on the merits of their arguments. And so they have bought into the lie that their level of outrage equals their level of rightness. And so that's one thing I tell people when I do my defeating pro-abortion arguments talk, which you got to see live. Zach was down there with us in Jacksonville when we did that earlier this year. It's like, look, the first one to raise their voice loses. Like if you go off half-cocked and start screaming, like that's very problematic, because it makes you look foolish and it makes your argument look weaker by default. And so it's like, if you can maintain yourself and keep calm and maintain your character and understand that they're going to jump from this argument to that argument to that argument, because if the goalpost doesn't move, then they will eventually lose the game. It's a very, very important thing for us to remember. And it goes all the way back to this time. Like, this isn't new. No. Like, this isn't a new tactic of Satan. Like, it's like, hey, we can't argue these points. And they're in a culture where obviously philosophy and argumentation is very, very important. They just couldn't argue there. They had to fight it on a different plane.
Yeah, the power of words, like going back to where it says, no man's ever spoke like he spoke, in reference to Jesus. And obviously what happened here with Stephen, incredibly powerful. And when you see somebody who's speaking through the Spirit, and generally speaking, I'd say a calm, collected way, it's extremely powerful.
When there's something to be said for a firebrand, right? Yeah. And then there's something to be said for somebody that calmly dismantles an argument. And there's not an example that explicitly comes to mind, but there are so many people that very calmly will destroy an entire level of argumentation. I guess like when I've watched some debates, literally Irish guy, been on my show. He's done debates with the atheist, John Lennox.
Lennox.
So Lennox,
so good.
It's a masterclass. So first of all, the Irish accent, shout out to my people, appreciate the Celtic people. But so in it, that all automatically adds, an accent automatically adds like 10, IQ points. But whenever he does things, and he does it with like a glint in his eye, whenever he's asking these questions. Yeah, because we'll talk a little bit about that. So it's that playfulness that makes him so effective, because I'm default aggressive, I'm default combative. And so I have to work to put myself in a place of, let's just play around a little bit, right? It's just a difference in approach to a situation. And it tends to work a lot better.
Yeah, G.K. Chesterton was the wizard of this. He would be so playful as he just dismantled your whole belief system in front of the crowd when he used to debate.
It's interesting lineage too, because that's who Lewis would talk about. And Lennox, in some ways, is sort of downstream of Lewis, having attended his conference.
Sure.
Yeah,
I think Lennox, when he went to Oxford, he attended one of C.S. Lewis's very last lectures.
Correct.
Incredible.
Yeah, same kind of personality.
Well, and here towards the end as well, I think we've already talked about just a little bit, but verse 14 again, for we have heard him say that this Jesus of Nazareth will destroy this place and will change the customs that Moses delivered to us. So Ryan, you're exactly right in pointing this out earlier, where it's like, okay, they're doing this to shift the plane of the argument. They're trying to, do another battlefront, but they're so concerned about the way things were and the way things have always been done. This is constantly the argument made against conservatives, which is like, hey, I get it that this is the way it's always been, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the best way moving forward. The people typically making that argument are not making it from a moral place, however. But I will say for me, I hate change. When I put things in place, I want them to stay there, and I don't want them to change unless it is a guarantee that they will improve. But whenever you get to something like this, like, again, I follow kind of the Jordan Peterson rule when he talks about, the police force that was in Poland, I believe. They were just guys working for the police force, and this is described in the book Ordinary Men, and then all of a sudden they were taking Jewish women and children out into the middle of the woods, stripping them naked, and then having them shot and left in mass graves. And it just got there one step at a time, and Jordan Peterson has helped me realize it's like, you can't assume that you wouldn't have been that person either. Yeah. Because we can look back, as C.S. Lewis describes, as chronological snobbery. We look at everyone that was born like before us as simpletons, and, they played with dirt, and that was basically their entire existence. But at the same time, you can't assume that you wouldn't have had your moral compass shifted just a half a degree, and then all of a sudden you're shooting Jewish women in the back of the head.
It's just like looking at the apostles, and you can read Jesus's frustration with them. It's
Oh,
like,
man.
Like, how are these guys this dumb? But like, I'm dumb. I'm
Yeah, we
just
need
as,
that. We need that in the text.
I'm just as dumb as like, I'm just as like, don't see it, can't see it, or understand it. I'm just as dumb as those guys. As much as I think like, man, they just don't get it. It's like, I don't get it either. And I think,
Go ahead.
and I think that's where it kind of looks down, where you have to look at yourself and know that there's a reason you need Christ. And that's because you don't know everything. You will never know everything. And you're just as dumb as the guy you think is dumb.
Well, and when we were going through Matthew, that's again, the book that John Eldredge wrote, Beautiful Outlaw, was a very important book for me. And a lot of people hate that book and, he's reading things into the text. But overall, the argument he's making in that book is don't read the Gospels or any part of the Bible for that matter as if there's no personality happening in the text. Yeah. And so this idea that Jesus was never playful, was never sarcastic, was never angry, was never biting, was never direct. If you read the Bible and then Jesus walked over to the person and he said this, it's like, okay, you might think that Jesus was just this holy robot, but it's like, man, no, this was a dude. Yeah. Like this was an early 30s Middle Eastern Jewish construction worker that walked around with another 12 dudes. You're telling me that Peter never tripped and fell whenever they were on a road to some place and that they didn't bring it up at dinner and give him a little bit of crap?
Weak hips. Peter.
Yeah, poor Peter. He's just having some issues. We'll keep working on those hips, Ryan. Don't you worry. But that's the thing that's helpful in this text as well, to where it's just like, hey, we would have been those dumb people as well. And that was helpful as I was reading through and being like, Jesus told you he was coming back and you were shocked that he came back. How are you this dumb? And I'm like, wait a minute. You're that dumb, Kyle. Yeah. Like you were certainly that dumb.
And I wonder, like I would have loved to, and the Bible is the Bible. He gave us what we needed for life and practice, but I would have loved to been given some insight into like what arguments is he dismantling before? Because what we see in his sermon, but this is next week, is he's making the claim that Judaism isn't the end game. There's a different end game, and the end game has to do with Christ as Messiah, and then for the whole world, and so this call to destroying the temple and changing the traditions of Moses he's actually doing that, but what he's doing, and again, this is next week, not this week, he's going to make the argument that Judaism wasn't God's end goal, but there was something else that was.
Right.
And that's the thing that when all's said and done is going to send everybody into a rage.
Well, and I will tell you that for someone, again, so did you grow up in church? I can't remember, Matt.
No, kind of not really.
Pseudo-ish. Ryan.
I grew up in a church.
Right, in a church. Zach.
Around it.
Yeah. So I basically didn't grow up at all. You and I both, Ryan and I, we were both baptized in a Church of Christ, but we were basically force dipped, I guess you could say. It's like my mom, on the way home one day from this church, she forced us to go to that we hated. She's like, yeah, you think y'all want to get baptized next week? And I was like, yeah, cool. Because I thought my grandmother had really bad cancer and she was baptized a few days before she died. And I was like, oh, okay. You have all the sin on you, and then you go in that holy water and they pull you out, and then you're not going to be able to accumulate that many more sins by the time you actually croak. And so that's the way to do it. But the thing that is, that's important as we work through something like this is we have to reckon with what is the narrative of the entire scripture. And one thing that's helpful for me, especially when I read the Old Testament, is I think, how does this point to Christ? Okay, whether I'm reading Nehemiah or Isaiah, how does this point to Christ? And next week, guys, just another commercial for next week, for a guy that didn't grow up in church, for a guy that doesn't have the Old Testament stories and characters just like right here because I went to VBS and I went to Awana and I went to all these different things, it is so helpful to just read those first few sections of Acts 7 because it gives you the spark notes of the entire Old Testament. And it's really so powerful for me. Yeah.
There was one thing I wanted to bring up.
Go for it. I don't know. Go ahead.
What Matt was talking about was, about the Stephen talking about the gospel going out to the world. I think earlier in this chapter, I think we kind of didn't go over it, but it was against the Hellenists and the Hebrews. And one was a Greek Hebrew and one was a Jewish Hebrew. And there was there some partiality going on in there?
That's the inference.
Yeah, in the inference. So the inference is there's some partiality going on where the Jewish Hebrews think that they're more worthy than the Greek Hebrews. And I think and Stephen is a part of this group of deacons who are all Hellenists, I believe.
Yeah.
If I read it correctly, I think that was a Moody commentary. But now going into, Judaism is already kind of growing outside of the Hebrew into the Greek, and now they're bringing in all these different kinds of Gentiles.
Right, because all the names listed were Greek names, which implied that that's how they were dealing with this issue, is by being like, hey, let's have some people in these seats where it makes sense for them.
Yeah, and I just think that's crazy to look at that and then go into when you go into Stephen's argument.
Well, this is going to make some of us happy, but we've been so efficient with our discussion that it seems as if we've got another bullet for each of us that we can fire off in the Ask a Pastor. So we are going to pick up the Ask a Pastor with Pastor Matt section here at the very end.
Do it.
But again, we got some jujitsu we got to go to, so we have to be somewhat efficient with our time. So, Ryan, go with your second
I'm
question.
going to let him
Why?
go.
Why? What's wrong?
Because
You don't
he
want to
doesn't
hit it
know
now?
anything about contemporary Christian music, and that was my second question.
Oh, you got to come up with a different one? Okay, fair enough. All right, Zach, hit it.
I really don't.
That's all
Even
good.
that makes me like you more.
I know, me
This,
too.
this one's a little lighter, but how can we reconcile Jesus' teaching in Matthew 6:34, not to worry about tomorrow, with biblical principles of careful planning and productivity, like found in Proverbs, and the assurance that worrying doesn't add to our lives? So finally, how can we faithfully balance trusting God with also responsibly planning for the future in a way that glorifies Him?
Yeah, I think there are two different things at play there. I think worrying about tomorrow is not the same thing as stewarding and preparing for the future. So I think what Jesus has in view there when he's talking about worry or anxiety is trying to take on all the issues of tomorrow in this very moment in a way that we're not omnipotent, we're not omnipresent, we're not omniscient. Only God is. So let God be God. But then you, like you've said, in the Proverbs, it's clear that there's wisdom and there's a way to prepare for tomorrow that we should be preparing for tomorrow. And then another layer would be, but where's our ultimate hope? And so I have a retirement plan. I give to that retirement plan. I did a 529 plan for my kids' college. Mm-hmm. I've done those things, but I'm not. And I've got a number I'm trying to work towards even. I mean, I've got a number that this is what I'd like to have when I don't even know. I don't think I'm going to retire. So, I mean, I'm not going to be the pastor of the village forever, but I don't sit well.
Yeah.
And so I think the idea of worry and anxiety and the idea of stewardship are actually two different issues, not the same issue. So it's not to be a good steward of your wealth in preparation for the future doesn't make you a worrier. There might be a way that you worry while you do that. So if you're like checking those numbers every day, and every time you read that something happened with the Dow, you log on and and it's keeping you up at night because you're not sure how you're going to hit that number that you want to hit at retiring. You're 55 and you're listening to us today, and that reminds you, oh my gosh, what are my numbers? And if that's happening, now we're in that space.
Yeah.
But it's not worrying to prepare for your future in the culture that we're in.
Would you say there's a line of worrying and fear that you've crossed into that's just not biblical? It's not from God?
I think that's what you're trying to watch. Like, are you obsessive about this? Yeah. Is your whole future built on this? And I'm just saying, where's ultimately your hope in your later days? And we want to, it's wise to prepare. It's good stewardship to prepare. And it's like budgeting, right? Like I'm not worried that I won't be able to pay my mortgage and feed my family.
Right.
I'm not worried about that because I've prepared a budget and we're living off of that budget. And so I know what's coming in and I know what's going out, and there could be 1,000 things happen, and I have an emergency fund for that. And that emergency fund isn't because I don't trust God. It's because I do trust God, and he's given me the means by which to steward well the life he's given me. And so like I said, I think I think you should be a very good steward of the resources, and that's time, treasures, and talents. That's the whole thing. A good steward of the life God's given you. And I think there's wisdom woven into that, and that good stewardship oftentimes leads to quite a bit of blessing.
Yeah.
Okay. Ryan, you've had time to prepare.
Are we ready to talk about women in the church?
I did tell you that we were on limited time here, that we got things to do.
1 Peter 3:7. I'm going to read it real quick. Likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing honor to a woman as a weaker vessel, since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. My question is, what does Peter mean by weaker vessel? And then how can we be better at showing our wives honor and grace as he talks about in this passage?
Yeah, I believe, so let me preface it like that, the allusion there is to porcelain, that they're like porcelain. They're easier to break. I think you can tease that out to mean all sorts of other things that I think are in and around that text. But I think just with four guys, there's a way that we treat one another, maybe because of, trauma from childhood or because nobody taught us how to be vulnerable with one another. But there's a way that we would talk. There's ways I talk to dudes I don't talk to my wife.
Yep.
There's tones and there's places I go with a man I would never go with my wife. She would be very frightened by it.
Don't let him read your group messages, guys.
She would be very frightened by it, and it would be counterproductive in what I would want to see the Lord doing in her heart. Like if I'm coming hard at a man, it's because I have a desire for him to grow into the fullness of what Christ has for him, and he's being a jackass or something, and I just need to call it what it is in the moment. And I'm just Lauren's not going to be able to hold up under the weight of that.
Yep.
She's just not. And I would say most women are not able to hold up under the weight of that, which is why if you go to a men's retreat, everything's different about that than even it is on Sunday morning. Yep. And it's certainly going to be different at a women's retreat. And I'm not talking about the essence of truth. I'm talking about the contextual reality of how do you speak to other men, how do you speak to women. They are different. And I think that's in view there. And then I think the second part of your question is I want to know and be intimately acquainted with how my wife hears and experiences me. And so we've been married 25 years next month. And one of the ways, we've got language that helps us now just because we know each other well. So she would say of me that I don't have a 1 to 5. I just have a 5 to 10. And so I will think I'm a 2 and I'm coming off as a 7. And I don't mean that. I'm not even feeling that. It's just how people experience me. There's a lot of pain behind this lesson, not just at home, but all over my life. Because I'll feel like I am so chill right now. And people will feel like nervous for themselves. I'm like, no, I'm at a 2. What?
I get that all the time.
I'm at a 2. And so Lauren will at times just say, hey, I don't think you're like at a 7 or 8 here, but I need you to try to find a 2 or a 3. And yeah, you probably think you are. Maybe you don't. Maybe you are pissed. But I need you. And it's her way of. I saw Matt Arroyo, who's a MMA guy, coach, and when he coaches MMA fighters, they and they get to the corner and they're, they can't. He'll give them a math. He'll just be like, hey, what's 7 plus 4? Okay, great. When's your daughter's birthday? And when they're able to answer questions like that, he's now pulled them into their prefrontal cortex, and now they'll be able to listen. Well, Lauren's little, hey, I think you think you're like at a 3 or 4, but you're coming off like you're really upset and you're really, can you come down? Like that's a game in our marriage now. Well, it's learned language in our marriage where Lauren can help me speak to her in a way that she's not going, is he mad at me? What's he so frustrated about? What is he, because I'm not brash per se. I'm just a passionate person. And so I can very passionately be agreeing with you, and Lauren will feel like, are we fighting?
Am I being bludgeoned?
Are we fighting right now? And I'm like, no, dinner was amazing. So that's one of the ways that we've had to figure it out. But that would be the answer to the question.
Well, in terms of relatability, like I know you're a big Jocko Willing guy, Zach. And so I remember him telling a story about he would come home from jujitsu, or he would come home from hanging out with like his Navy SEAL buddies. And, his wife would be like, hey, I'm not a Navy SEAL.
FYI.
And like, it's that play. And my wife has had this similar conversation with me because I'm very similar as well. Like I've got neutral and, final gear, right? Yeah. It's like, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. And so that's kind of like my entire life. And so she'll just be like, hey, I'm here. And she'll pet me a little bit and she'll just be like, hey, I can tell that you're not mad. No one else can tell.
Yeah.
Because she's been around me more hours than just about anybody else in my entire life. And so that's a helpful thing as well.
I feel for you. Like when it became clear to me about how to get better with my wife was by having a daughter.
Yes.
Seeing the difference in how she responds. And I know you haven't seen this, but
he doesn't want to.
It's totally different.
It's worth
it. Yeah, it is.
My wife would tell me, like, you're yelling. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just super passionate.
No, I'm not.
Talking with passion.
I'm just super passionate. I'm like, I'm not mad. I'm just really passionate about it. And so
that's funny now.
Thank you for making me feel normal, Matt.
Yeah. Right. I think a lot of guys listening to this is probably resonating.
Oh, it's certainly resonating. But I'll even say for me as well, like since I've had a couple vocal cord surgeries, I don't have this problem as much because like I can't yell. Like the ability to yell is not there anymore. But I still have the ability to talk with such intensity that people are like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, are we all about to die? Like, is he going to pull out the jawbone of a donkey and start killing people? Like you kind of have that as well. Yeah. Whoa. What, Zach?
Nothing.
You always get that smirk on your face when I'm talking. What did I say?
Keep going.
Fine. That's fine. All right. We're going to close out with one question. Now, the reason why I want to ask this question is because this is the one that has made the unflappable Joby Martin uncomfortable. And it made him uncomfortable for weeks. He even told me when I saw him, when we met him in Jacksonville, he's like, I've been thinking about that question. It's the first thing he said when I walked in his office. I've been thinking about that question you asked me over and over. And so here's the question. It's very, very important how it's framed as well.
Okay. Frame it up.
So if you were transported back in time and you're in Hitler's nursery, he's a day-old newborn baby, and you only get this one opportunity to be back there. So you can't share the gospel with him. You can't reason with him. The only thing that you can do is kill him or let him live. And if you don't kill him, everything in history is the exact same. And if you do kill him, everything in history is completely different. Do you have a moral obligation to kill baby Hitler?
Oh, complex ethics. That's amazing.
It's like the Calvinist questions he gives me.
They're doozies.
They're doozies.
But let's let them sit in this awkwardness for a little bit.
One, I don't feel awkward. I'm trying to do the gymnastics in my head. Yet my gut tells me I kill the little guy, but then my pro-life stance says no, but then my pro-life stance goes, but that's a lot. I mean, that's millions of other babies. That it's complex ethics.
So what's your answer?
I think I'd kill him.
Okay. Well, because I think I'm pretty sure he landed on that he wouldn't kill baby Hitler. And I talked about the same way to where it's like, okay, well, now Hitler's in your house. He's going to kill your family. What are you going to do? It's like, oh, I'm going to kill him. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
right. So let's do that's what I'm saying.
Why not kill the baby?
Yeah, it's complex ethics.
So
you don't know.
The scenario is important because everyone's like, well, no, I would wait and I would preach to him. It's like, he's 1 day old. There is no preaching. You don't get to live life with baby Hitler and try to point him and nudge him in the wrong direction.
Through like multiverses, man. Like,
and that is just a reality that I'm bringing you into. So hop into this multiverse.
It's not the same thing for him to be in your house about to kill your family.
Yeah,
there's a clear biblical mandate to execute him in that point. But beforehand,
that is not the scenario. Stop trying to skate it, you wimps. Like, just let me know what you would do and stand by it. We'll have y'all answer as well. I'm killing that baby.
In the Marvel universe I'm in,
no one even likes that Marvel universe anymore. It's the same movie over and over.
Is that still happening?
Everything's derivative.
Yes.
No, it's whack. It's whack. So what are you going to do?
I'm with Joby. I can't kill him. I mean, God is sovereign. So
nope. You have damned tens of millions of people to death. Congratulations.
And I'm bald too, so that's even worse.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm undecided.
We can't have that.
You can't
have that, Finn Stradler.
Well, if that's the case, then I have to go with don't kill him and trust God, because that's the clear biblical mandate in my mind.
We're not in that scenario because I've already established. No, wait. I've already established.
You can yell.
I've already established in this moment. Everything will be the same. That is the thought experiment. Not, I'm just going to let go and let God. Everything in the scenario is the same.
So in this scenario, there is no God in this multi-universe?
That's not what I said. Not at all. In the scenario, you go back in time and you get one chance to take Hitler out. And if you don't take him out, tens of millions of people will die. Tens of millions, Ryan. Are we killing the baby or are we letting all those other people die horrible deaths?
Why do you have to do Hitler?
Why are you pro-gas chamber, huh?
I'm not pro-gas chamber.
That's what it sounds like.
What Hitler did was disgusting.
And you can stop it. And you can stop it. You have the power.
So Satan raises another Hitler in his place.
Yeah.
Maybe. You don't know that.
So if I just commit, be angry and do not sin,
I wouldn't be angry. I would just kill him with a happy heart. Stupid Hitler baby. He probably already had the mustache.
Why can't you send us back in time and kill his mom or dad? Like, why does it have to be a baby?
Well, because he's already alive in my scenario. And I made the scenario because it's my question. So if you want to start your own podcast, get 600 episodes under your belt, and then ask your own damn questions, feel free and go for it.
I can't do what you do, Kyle.
Okay. Well, you can always work your way. Guys, anything else before we wrap up?
This was
Act
fun.
6?
It feels like I'm at a sleepover at a friend's house in middle school.
We will have a pillow fight after this. I guarantee that. But guys, we're going to have to leave that there. But come back here next week where we're going to be digging into, as Matt Chandler said, one of the greatest sermons of all time as recorded in the Bible. And that's Stephen's sermon there in Acts 7. So come and make sure that you've read all the way through that. But before we let you go, we are going to do a quick resilience boost. At Undaunted Life, our mission is equipping men to push back darkness with content that forges spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. As I talk about every week, we are set up with Logos, the greatest Bible software in existence, guys. If you want to take your Bible study to the next level, I think everybody at this table has the Logos software downloaded. We have a link here where you can get that at an extreme discount, so you can check that out. And also, we have partnered with Crossway to create a forging table starter set. It is 5 books that you can get for half off for this entire set. It'll set you up if you want to do something similar to this in your place. And then also, we are a donation-based ministry. So if you're wondering how we're able to keep the lights on and keep this content going out to people around the globe, it's because we have guys just like you giving $10 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month to help us do exactly what we were put here to do, and that's equipment to push back darkness. Please consider hopping on board and being a donor. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@Undaunted.Life. That's info@Undaunted.Life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.Undaunted.Life. And as always, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, keep pushing back darkness, keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, keep seeking the Lion of Judah.